Good evening, everyone. It's Monday, June 10th, 7:30 p.m., and this is a Darien Board of Finance special meeting, which was called a little over a week ago to accelerate our meeting that was originally scheduled for next week. First item on the agenda, as always, is public comment. Jen, do we have anyone either on or waiting in the waiting room?
Yes.
We do not have. Yeah, I was going to say we don't have any emails, but we do have a participant on the Zoom meeting.
Okay. If anyone would like to make public comment, just hit the raise your hand button on the bottom.
I don't know how to raise the button, so I don't know. I don't have the button.
I'm not sure who that is, but if you do want to make a public comment, please just state your name and address, and you can make a public comment.
My name is Luz Bueno, and I live at 123 Hoyt Street. The cost of the consulting fees for Great Island has been missing from every single agenda of the Great Island Advisory Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Finance. Every other allocation and transfer has the cost next to it, except this one, that went down last week from $2 million to 1.43 without any explanation. In tonight's agenda, residents could know a 1.42 million allocation was included unless they went down to the 20th page and last of the attachments of the agenda. The only thing that has been consistent with the Great Island allocation for consulting fees is the lack of transparency and the intention to hide from the public this first $2 million and now 1.42 million allocation for consulting fees to get a second master plan because we already have one on the shelf. We don't know anything about this except that it doesn't include a pool. The town pool was the most asked for feature last year when we bought Great Island. But the Great Island Advisory Committee never requested a proposal for a pool to the consultants. Last week, we learned that if we decided to spend $1.42 million for the mystery master plan, it would cost $48 to $64 million to implement it. And it will all have to be done in 41 months before the end of 2028. So if we decided to take a couple of years to implement it, we would have to pay the consultants some other couple million. We also know that all processes went out the window to approve this. The question is, why are so many of you so invested on spending so much money from the town while hiding it from the residents? Thank you very much. It's muted.
Jim, I think you're muted.
Okay, hearing no more public comment there, I will move on to the first item on our agenda, which is a transfer. It's discuss and take action on a request for a transfer of $26,000 for the repair of the air conditioning unit at Town Hall. Some of the background on this was included in our agenda, and it looks like we have Ed on to speak to that.
Sure. Can you folks hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. So the transfer that you have in front of you is a request to repair one of the main units that of two that handle the town hall portion of the facility. Each one of the units has two compressors in it. We currently have one physically running. We did have to make a small repair on it, but the second one has been evaluated and found to be beyond repair. We went out and got estimates from our service provider, and we're able to get our hands on a compressor to replace the one that has failed. Currently, we're working at about 50 to 60% of the unit on one compressor, but we do have it scheduled to be repaired as soon as this transfer hopefully is approved tonight. But understand we have evaluated the two units on the building currently, and we'll be looking to in the future add it to our 6-year capital plan so that we can plan to replace not just the unit on the west end of the building, which is the one we'll be working on, but also the east end of the building. And I think I was just asked to make sure that you folks understand each one of these large units carries 2 compressors in it. And again, we're replacing one and the other one has been repaired and up and running. Any questions?
Any questions from the committee?
Hey, Ed, how old are these units? If you don't mind me asking.
They're over 20 years old. So, and we had just had this unit along with the other one, both units serviced about 2.5 months ago. But we went up as we cycled them through during the cooler season as it ramps up to get a little warmer. We found that one had a leak and the other one hasn't been running. So this is why we moved quickly to get this replaced before we get to the hot weather.
Sorry, Ed. So this is a unit that can be like, are you going to replace more of this in the next few years? Like this will get us a few years and then we're going to replace something?
Well, these units, they run about $150,000 a piece. So we're able to replace this compressor at about $23,000. So this will get us a couple more years while we can plan out the capital investment properly.
And I assume it's not usable in the new system. It'll be sunk cost at that point.
You mean the compressor itself?
Yeah.
There is some recycled use of the newer ones as we take them down off the roofs. We do, if you will, we do sell pieces off of them, or we do trade parts of them in, and we take some of these larger units down. But most of them, you know, if they don't have new parts put in, are basically only worth the scrap that the weight that they carry.
But this unit would have normally lasted 20-ish years.
It's 20 is probably the limit. The outer limit is probably closer to 25 based on your maintenance and preventive maintenance and your filter checks, and along with everything else that goes with any type of preventive maintenance plan. We've been doing that pretty constant since I've been here. These units are important to the building, both during the summer and the winter. They do circulate air. So with that being said, we do constantly monitor these. But again, they're reaching their end of their useful life. We're going to extend the useful life of this unit, and then we're going to properly plan to replace the 2 units on the roof, one each year, moving into the next maybe 3 or 4 years.
So Ed, should we think about this a bit as a bridge, if you will, to the larger?
I believe that's a good way to put it, yes.
Okay. Okay, well, Ed, all I would say is, I'm certainly in favor of this. We need to get this done, but I would say as it relates to the larger, let's make sure if that's not already included in our sort of long-term capital plan. Let's make sure that's, work with Jen and Kate and staff to make sure that's incorporated into, some of these bigger projects over the next few years.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll accept the motion to transfer $26,000 from the Board of Finance Capital Reserve into the Town Hall Air Conditioning Compressor Replacement Fund, or account. Looks like Rob moves, Paul seconds. All those in favor? Looks like we're unanimous. Thanks all. Ed, thank you
very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. The next item is to discuss and take action on a transfer of $3,870 for the Noroton Fire Department gas meters. I think we have Chief Keen on.
We
Correct.
do, but very quickly, I just do want to point out we have one transfer request for fiscal 24 to begin the first annual subscription, and then we also have a transfer request in 25 because this wasn't contemplated in the budget. But it's the same explanation for both, just a different amount.
Thanks, Jen. So Brenda, maybe if you could just address both of them, what we're doing,
Sure.
our plan to purchase has changed a bit. So just be helpful to update the committee and the public.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Apologies for my appearance. I just came in from an alarm, so I'm a little bit rough looking. But anyways, so the reason we requested this transfer is this was approved as a fiscal year 24 capital expense project for $24,000 with the anticipated outcome of that project being replacing all of our 4 and 5 gas meters over basically this fiscal year, and then in a couple of years down the line, replacing a few more meters. But throughout this process, which is about a year and a half of a committee doing their research, we've demoed a bunch of different models, platforms, just everything that's available out there in the market. One that came to us very late and was a new idea to us was leasing the equipment instead of purchasing it. And so we demoed that meter platform, and it came back pretty much unanimously across the department that was the meter that everyone liked the most, and was something we wanted to move forward with. So I reached out to Jen and Kate and talked to them about it and explained why, what the goals of this project were and how this, switching to the subscription-based model was a better option for us. And essentially, the whole idea is that operationally, it's just a lot easier and smoother for us. We're going to be able to eliminate a lot of extra meters that we currently have on hand, that we keep on hand for when meters go down and need service. They have to be sent out for repairs. All that is part of a automatic system now, where basically all these new meters are linked into a cloud-based system that when that cloud detects something's wrong, the company automatically sends us a new meter. And we are, as soon as we get the new meter, we send them the old one back in the mail. There's no need for ongoing expenses like bump gas and for calibration monthly, and just all those ongoing costs are already built into the model. So, as far as the money goes, obviously this is no longer an item where we're looking to purchase equipment. So therefore those funds for the capital project really aren't appropriate. So when I talked to Jen and Kate about it, they suggested I talk to you folks about requesting a transfer to our operating account to cover the next 2 years, this fiscal year and then fiscal year 25. And then moving forward from there, it would be becoming an ongoing operating line item in our budget. The meters we're replacing are, becoming obsolete. They're expensive to replace, they're expensive to repair, and they are no longer being supported on the 5 gas level. So we have to make a change. It doesn't, regardless of which way we go, we have to make a change on our platform. And this is the one we, really wanted to move forward with.
Okay, and Brendan, are these similar to the same units that are used by our other departments in town?
Yes, I mean all the meters are pretty similar. These just have some other features that we really liked. One of them being record keeping is now kept in a cloud-based system. We all use similar meters, but they're not exactly the same. And yeah.
Got it. And do the other departments already own theirs, or are they leasing theirs as well? Do you know?
They have a mixed, from my understanding, they own all of theirs to this point, because that's what we've all done until now. This was really a new thing that came along, that came recommended from some other departments we talked to. And it's new to us. So, having demoed it and talked to some people is a change we thought was appropriate at this time, rather than making a large, capital investment up front, which is, when you switch these meters, if you buy the equipment, the first year your outlay is, for us, it was going to be $24,000, which wasn't even replacing all our meters. There's about half of them. And then the other half was going to be just equipment to have in the station, to charge them, to calibrate them, to test them. And unfortunately, that equipment that we currently have for our current system, you get 5, 6, 7 years out of it, and then the equipment becomes obsolete, and you have to have that, capital investment again. So the idea here is just make it an ongoing operating investment that's going to be easier operationally for our members, but also, in my opinion, is cost effective in the long run.
And with respect to the length of the lease that we enter into, is it effectively indefinite, or?
So they're 1 year leases. We would be looking to move forward with a 24-month trial, essentially. Assuming everything goes well, it would become something that, yes, it would become an ongoing operating expense at that point. which it does also offset some of the ongoing operating expenses we're currently incurring, which I summarized in an email that last year, fiscal year 23, we spent about $2,500 just in repairs alone on these meters. So, and some of those new meters that we are looking at, the repair costs for replacing sensors were even more astronomically scary. Some of them are $1,800 a unit, and you're talking 5 sensors per unit, and they, every 1 to 2 years you've got to start changing.
Okay. Any questions from the committee, from the board? No. Okay, Chief Keen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I will we'll break this into 2 different transfers. The first is going to be I'll accept the motion for a $3,870 transfer from the Board of Finance contingency account into the operating supplies account for the fire department, for the Noroton Fire Department. Rob moves. Dan seconds. All those in favor? Hey, Dave, looks like you went blank. Are you good with that?
He had dropped off, and I just readmitted him. So you might need to double.
Okay. Hey, David, it looks like you dropped off for a second there. All those in favor of the $3,870 transfer from our contingency account into the operating supplies for the Noroton Fire Department?
I'm fine with it. I was having trouble with my mic. Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
My question would be this. It's about the math. We only have 2 weeks left in fiscal 24, but it looks like the transfer amount is in excess of half the cost of the annual lease payment. So by my math, that doesn't add up. I would think if the annual lease payment is $5,600 or whatever it is we're budgeting for the second year, that for 2 weeks of fiscal 24, the payment should be a lot smaller than $3,870.
Hey, Chief Keen, can you address that for us?
Our plan was to enter into a 1-year lease starting, if we were given permission, it would be effective immediately. So I wanted to have the funds in hand to pay for that for the entire year. And then next year, it would be the same story of, effectively entering into a lease in May or June of next year and having the funds available for the whole year.
So I think so are you talking about a calendar year?
Correct.
So this would effectively be, I think, maybe 7/12 of a year, and then next year you would say it would be the full 12 months?
Conceivably, we could probably do that, yes.
So maybe just to David's question there, so it sounds like the amounts are determined pro rata based on the calendar, but Jen, how do we typically enter into these leases? Or is it typically a fiscal year lease? Like, do we need to?
No, it doesn't need to match up to the fiscal year. We have some that run at all different terms, and as long as it begins before June 30th, it would be charged to the current fiscal year.
Got it. Okay, David, does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, Jen. Since it begins before the end of the fiscal year, it accrues to the year in which the contract was executed. So
correct.
That makes sense to me.
Got it. Okay, so with that, I'll go back to the motion just for the record here. Is everyone in favor of that? Please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Chief Keen, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks. So item 4 is to discuss and take action on a request for transfer of 8.
Jim, I think you only took a motion on the fiscal 24, but we also need a motion on the fiscal 25 amount.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Good point. So I'll entertain a motion to transfer $5,670 from the contingency account for our fiscal 2025 budget into the operating supplies for the Noroton Fire Department. Rob moves. Dan seconds. All those in favor? Okay, that looks unanimous as well.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Chief. So item 4, discuss and take action on a request for a transfer of $8,200 for repair of an irrigation line at Cherry Lawn.
Yes, thank you. So none of you know me other than Jen. So hi, I'm Jen Favor, the new Director of Parks and Recreation. So this request is about a month or so ago, prior to me getting here, there was a break in the water line heading to the Cherry Lawn Community Gardens. We were able to repair it, but the type of pipe it's a plastic pipe that will continue to break over time. So since that time, that repair held, but it now broken in additional places. So what this is to replace that entire line. And then as part of this is also to install another valve, because right now this shuts off the water to the irrigation system on the field as well as the gardens. So obviously it's better for us to be able to have those separated, and also will help ease with the winter blowouts. So we did receive estimates on this from the company that typically handles our properties and our irrigation lines that are familiar with the system. So that's how we got the pricing. We are looking to move this within our own budget, to take it from the pest control line into the facility repair and maintenance line. The department has been pretty conservative with that pest control line is mostly for our geese management and some of the other things. So we have money in that line. I know it looks like there's a huge available balance, but we did find that there were some issues with billing, so we're correcting that as well, but there's still enough money in that line. So we're asking for that transfer to occur so we can get the new line put in.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, I'll accept the motion to transfer $8,200 from the pest control operating line of the fiscal 24 budget into the facility repair and maintenance account. Dan moves, Rob seconds. All those in favor? Looks like that's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Jen, welcome, and we look forward to all working with you over the next year.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Yep, bye.
Okay, the next item under transfer is number 5, discuss and take action on the request for a transfer of $25,480 for the police station maintenance.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So we're requesting this transfer because we budgeted about $37,000 for the police station maintenance facility repair for this current fiscal year. However, we experienced some unforeseen expenses this current fiscal year. A couple of them was a major repair to our HVAC system, our fire suppression system, and our main generator, which totaled about $25,000 in expenses that we did not budget for. So ultimately, our year-to-date spending is very high. So we're already about $11,000 in the hole for this particular account. So we're looking to do a transfer in 2 different account areas, and we have some additional expenses that are coming down the pike for police station maintenance facility repair. One of them is a motor drive pump, which would be about $5,000. We got UPS batteries for our lighting system, which is going to be about $4,000. So with the deficit we're in and the additional expenses that are going to be coming up shortly, this current fiscal year, we're looking to do a transfer of $12,480 from our police employee education account, and $13,000 from our police records contract services and software. And the reason why we have additional money left in these accounts, so the police employee education account, we budgeted for 3 officers to attend college courses for 2 semesters this fiscal year. It turns out only one officer took advantage of the incentive program, which as a result, we have some leftover money because the two other officers didn't attend courses. The other account, police records, contract services, we have a decent amount left over because of our former public safety software, Central Square. We switched to a new software, Next Gen, in the middle of the fiscal year, which was paid out of a capital fund. And we obviously stopped services with Central Square. So we had about an additional $27,000 left over from our contract, which with Central Square. So we have the money in both accounts. We're just looking to transfer them into our maintenance facility repair account to cover the deficit and the upcoming expenses. Allie, if I missed anything, feel free.
If the new contract was paid out of capital, does that mean that we purchased the software as opposed to leased it?
I believe everything's moving to kind of a subscription base, but it was the full implementation. I think it was around $150,000. Allie, am I right on that?
To switch over to Central Square, it was, I want to say it was more than that. I think it was like 200, but we're talking about the operating costs. So you have to have cloud-based subscription, and through Central Square, that cost per year was $52,000, and with Next Gen, it's $29,000. So that's where the difference was. So the capital paid for us to move over, and we had some money left from last year that we transferred over. And then, but this is part of the operating budget.
And David, when we talk capital, the RFCNRE fund is actually capital and non-recurring. So implementation of that magnitude, even though we're not owning the software, would fall under the non-recurring portion of that fund. It won't be capitalized because we don't own it, but it's being paid out of the reserve for capital non-recurring.
Hey, David, we can't hear you.
Actually, it's actually an implementation cost, not a traditional capital item.
Right.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, any other questions on this? Yes, Captain, and just one question I would have is relates to sort of like this type of facility repair and so forth. I know it sounds like, you know, kind of going forward, you guys are going to be working a little bit closer with Ed and his team in terms of trying to kind of pull together and kind of forecast some of these, you know, some of these larger projects so we can begin to deal with them, you know, as part of the regular budget cycle.
Yeah, that's correct. We are ongoing discussions on that. You know, we're looking to get someone basically full time to assist us with all that.
Great. Well, you know, Captain, I appreciate you kind of doing the, you know, a little bit of double duty here with the facility stuff. So thanks for the help on this.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'll entertain a transfer of $12,480 from the Police Employee Education Fund and $13,000 from the Police Records and Contract Services Software and Maintenance and Support Fund into the Station Maintenance and Facility Repair Fund for a total of $25,480. Rob moves. Paul seconds. All those in favor? It's like unanimous. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item we have Kathy Larkins here to walk us through the discussion or an action needed to take on the tax collection suspense list. Kathy?
It's a mouthful.
It is, but hopefully it's a small amount. So
it is not as small as I'd like it to be, but you know, I'll take it. So as tax collector, I'm required to come before the Board of Finance once a year to request your approval of the suspense list. This year, I am requesting unpaid motor vehicle, supplemental motor vehicle, and personal property accounts from Grand List 2019 be suspended. Of the $7.8 million and 20,345 accounts originally billed, there remains $24,147.82 and 118 accounts uncollected. This amount is considered uncollectible and therefore my request to be removed from the tax receivable on the town's books. Collection efforts on the suspended accounts will continue. As you see from the information I provided you for this meeting, over $4,000 in previously suspended accounts was collected during the current fiscal year. I would also like to point out that the amount that I am asking to suspend is less than comparable municipalities of Westport, Wilton, and Ridgefield. New Canaan did have a lower write-off amount, but they were suspending Grand List 2015 motor vehicle and supplemental motor vehicle, so it should be lower because the more current the bills are, the higher usually your balance is. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Kathy, were there any particular things that you'd want to point out, just given the three different categories here, the personal property, the motor vehicle, and the supplemental?
Well, on the motor vehicle and supplemental motor vehicle, it's primarily cars that have moved out of state. We do have the hold with our DMV in Connecticut. So if any of these people that are on the list move back to Connecticut within a 15-year period, then they will have to pay these outstanding amounts. So that's one whole thing. Personal property, there were some restaurants that went out during COVID. And the way the personal property goes, there's such a lag between when the liability is incurred and the bill is actually issued that, you know, this is always a tough one to collect on. So I use whatever resources I have in terms of I file UCC1 liens with the Secretary of State's office. Anything that requires a health permit, I work with the health department, and that's spas and restaurants. But it has to be at least a year old for me to enforce collection. And I have done some bank executions where I do go into a business's bank account and file the proper paperwork. And I have gotten some payments that way.
Do I read this right, that this is a 0.31% uncollectible rate?
On these these three categories,
On
yes,
these
in
categories,
total,
which
yes.
is 99.7% collection rate. Okay. Just to remind everybody, you know, yes, these are suspended, but this is 99.7% of these categories of bills were paid.
Great. And we will get more payments. I mean, if you,
Right. Yes.
you know, so it's not like this write-off is basically to keep the receivable more conservative and not get overinflated. That's really what the purpose of this is.
Right.
Hey, Kathy, just curious, do you, given the motor vehicles, and these are vehicles that were registered in Darien, do you coordinate at all with Parks and Rec or the Public Works in terms of whether these same individuals and or vehicles apply for parking permits at the train station, beach passes, or transfer station passes?
You know, some of that does happen on the assessor side, where she's looking at registrations to inappropriate addresses like PO boxes or the UPS store, something like that. On my side, I don't really get involved in that.
Got it.
And there's no ordinance that prevents someone who has delinquent taxes from getting a dump sticker or beach permit.
Got it. Maybe that's something to
Think
talk
about
to the board, talk to the Board of Selectmen about as relates to from a policy perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, you know what? I take that back. We do once a year when the parking permit, the commuter parking permit renewals come due, we do hold off. We don't allow people to renew their commuter parking permits if they have delinquent taxes on their cars.
Great. Maybe reach out to the folks at Parks and Rec and Public Works. Maybe we can implement that same kind of policy on those to help.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to, Jen, do I need to reference all three of these amounts separately?
No, you can just say the 24,000 as presented.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move to the suspense list, $24,147.82 from the 2019 grand list as detailed in Ms. Larkin's memo. Dan moves. Dave seconds. All those in favor? Looks like unanimous. Kathy, thank you very much. And obviously, thanks for all you do here.
All right,
Thank you,
thank
Kathy.
you.
Okay, next item 7. This is more of a discussion. I don't think there's action needed here, but regarding the bond authorization and appropriation for Great Island. As we talked about at our last meeting here, we had approved an up to $2 million with the expectation that once the final costs or contracts were negotiated and so forth, that number would be reduced before it was sent to the RTM. The process here, just to remind everybody, is the Board of Selectmen approved an appropriation of up to $2 million. Our board then approved an appropriation and bond resolution up to $2 million. It subsequently went back to the Board of Selectmen because they also needed to approve the actual bond authorization, the ability to fund it through bonds. And at that time, I think the meeting was beginning of last week, they approved a $1.425 million appropriation. And so that is the bond authorization, and an appropriation will go to the RTM. I think it's next week, Jen?
Yes, Monday the 17th.
Got it. So that number, just to give everybody a little bit of an overview, approximately 1.66 million was what Reed Hildebrand had originally proposed. They were the party out of the 16, and then the final 4 that the Great Island Committee originally selected. Monica and a few of our resident partners on the Great Island Advisory Committee worked with them to negotiate sort of a reduction in that fee, approximately 18%. And so the net fee that they would be earning was 1.36 million approximately. There's a little bit further discussion in that Ed and his team on the public works side and the committee felt like rather than having the contractor, Reed Hildebrand go out and sort of source their own sort of environmental engineer, that we'd be better served using Redness and Mead, who's a firm that, we've used on a ton of projects. They were involved in the original purchase and planning here for the Great Island. And somebody that, again, Ed works with very closely. So another 20,000 was produced from their fee. And then a contract of up to 45,000 will be entered into with Redness and Mead. Effectively, it's a use when needed. That entire amount may not be spent, but that was a total of about 1.38 million. And then plus 5,000 for bonding expenses and about 32,000 for a contingency, which brought the total appropriation of the Board of Selectmen is now sending to the RTM to 1.425 million. So there's nothing really for us to do here. Our up to 2 million has now been modified and being sent to the RTM. They won't be able to approve anything above that number. So Jen, correct me if I misspoken anything there.
Nope, sounded right to me.
Okay. So I don't think, my view is I don't think any action is needed here. I think it would be, if we wanted to kind of get a sense of it, supporting the lower number, which we had all expected we could do that, but there's no real action needed here. So any questions on this? Okay.
Hey, Jim, just a
Yeah, David?
question for my education. I think we all read that the town is gonna lease Great Island for that series that's gonna be filmed out there. Is there any role that the Board of Finance plays related to that lease?
No, it's not There's nothing for us to do to approve that. Dave's question was just regarding the news article that a company is going to film some scenes for a movie at Great Island. Is there anything for us to do? I think the answer is no, Jen. This is under the Board of Selectmen's control. Right? It's a
Yes.
contract. We're not necessarily like quote leasing real property to them. We're allowing them to use that. So David, I don't think there's any action on anything that the Board of Finance needs to do. Absent a small cameo by any Board of Finance members that can play guitar. So the last item on the agenda here is to discuss the fiscal year 24-25 budgets. I guess nothing new to report on the 2024 budget. Jen, do we know anything different about where we're heading for surpluses on the town side versus what we expected?
I haven't rerun the projection, but there haven't been any big surprises. I think I told you about the $200,000 for the phantom streetlights that we got refunded.
Yep.
Investment income looks like it's going to come in even a little bit higher than what we were projecting, but we'll have that all tallied up probably when we report in July. I'll do a comparison, show you where we thought we were going to, where we thought we were going to be back in April, where it's looking like we are now, and then we'll true that up August or September after we get everything closed out.
Got it. Well,
but not expecting any big surprises.
Got it. I think, I asked, reached out to the Board of Ed on their side, their projected deficit, which we funded at our last meeting. There's no expected material change in that. Obviously, they won't know until they get into August and kind of fully close out the year. And Jen, anything new on the fiscal 25? I know the Board of Ed voted at their last meeting to make the adjustments that they needed. Encourage you guys all to look at that if you haven't seen it. But everything looks to be in line in terms of moving forward.
Yes. Yep. Nothing to report on that yet.
Jim, since I missed the last meeting, what was the deficit on the Board of Ed that the board approved financing? Or roughly.
I think it was about 180,000.
Okay.
Out of about $114 million budget, so it was relatively small. And Paul Rich had spoken to the fact that they had done a sort of a soft freeze, and any unnecessary unused funds that were in any of the smaller accounts, they were not using them unless it was absolutely necessary for educational purposes. So he felt pretty confident that that number would work well.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, if that's it, I will entertain a motion. Since this is a public meeting, nothing new can be added to the agenda, but I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Rob moves. David seconds. All those in favor? Okay, 44 minutes.